Idaho death row inmate Thomas Creech's execution is moving forward.
Well, new developments for Idaho's longest-serving death row inmate Thomas Creech.
Or was it revenge? How do you feel about that? I thought at the time that I was doing the right thing.
Law enforcement officers said he beat fellow inmate David Dale Jensen to death with a sock full of batteries.
He did not deserve how his life ended.
Today, the Idaho Supreme Court denied a motion to stay his execution.
Early life. Michael Creech was born on September 9, 1950 in Hamilton, Ohio, into a tumultuous family environment marked by frequent parental arguments and eventual divorce. Left to live with his father, Creech witnessed his father's mysterious demise, during which he claimed to have attacked the attending male nurse. Following his father's demise, Creech's life became a vagabond existence, with little confirmed information due to rumors and his own unverified accounts. He embarked on cross-country journeys, eventually leading to a prison sentence of 2 to 50 years for unarmed robbery on December 11, 1969. Paroled in 1971, Creech's life took another turn when he married 17-year-old Thomasine Lauren White in 1973. However, tragedy struck when White, allegedly traumatized by a gang attack, took her own life in a mental institution.
Idaho death row inmate Thomas Creech's execution is moving forward.
Claims of killing over 40 people, and he's been sitting on death row in Idaho for nearly 40 years. It has the chemicals it needs to carry out an execution by lethal injection.
Idaho Governor Brad Little has already said he has zero intention of stopping the execution.
He did not deserve how his life ended.
Creech's criminal activities continued, culminating in the theft of 13 cartons of cigarettes in Portland on August 22, 1973. Following a brief stint in a mental facility, he was discharged without any diagnosed mental health issues. Returning to Portland, Creech found employment at St. Mark's Episcopal Church, but his tenure ended abruptly after a body was discovered in his apartment. Subsequently, Creech and his new fiancée, 17-year-old Carol Spaulding, relocated to Idaho. Idaho slayings and arrest. On November 6, 1974, Michael Creech and his girlfriend Carol Spaulding were hitchhiking in Idaho when they accepted a ride from two house painters, Edward Thomas Arnold and John Wayne Bradford. Tragically, Creech suddenly brandished a rifle and fatally shot both men in the head before burying their bodies along Highway 55 in Valley County near Donnelly. Following the gruesome slayings, Creech enlisted the help of Gene Alvin Hilby to dispose of the slaying weapon, unaware of its significance. Meanwhile, authorities swiftly launched an investigation into the heinous crime, spurred by the discovery of the victims' bodies and their abandoned car.
Well, new developments for Idaho's longest-serving death row inmate Thomas Creech.
40 years later, and the family of David Jensen is still coping with his death at the hands of Thomas Creech.
Now he has narrowed that list to 26. A list that includes 9 persons he says gang raped his second wife.
Creech has admitted as well to killing dozens of people, and just last week was named a suspect in a California cold case murder.
Just 2 days later, Creech and Spaulding were apprehended by Glens Ferry by vigilant police officer Bill Hill, who recognized them as fugitives wanted for slaying. Subsequently, both individuals were arraigned on slaying charges and detained pending further legal proceedings. Although initially suspected of involvement in additional crimes, including demise threats against a Colorado senator, Creech was later cleared of these accusations. He was subsequently transferred to the more secure Ada County Jail in Boise to await trial for the Idaho slayings. Trial and imprisonment. Following his arrest, Michael Creech's behavior continued to raise concerns. About a week after being apprehended, he made a self-destruction attempt by slashing his wrists with a broken piece of mirror. Fortunately, prison guards intervened before he could inflict serious harm, and Creech was relocated to a different cell to prevent further self-harm. Meanwhile, Gene Alvin Hilby, who had assisted Creech in disposing of the slaying weapon, faced legal consequences but was eventually released on probation after pleading guilty to hindering a slaying case. However, Creech's troubles persisted. In January 1975, his girlfriend, Carol Spaulding, now 18, was tried as an adult for her involvement in the slayings. Creech's disruptive behavior continued even behind bars. In June, he attacked his cellmate, William O. Fisher, causing facial injuries that required medical attention. Despite a gag order preventing details of the altercation from being disclosed, the incident further complicated Creech's legal proceedings.
Today, the Idaho Commission of Pardons and Parole denied Creech's request to reduce his sentence to life in prison.
Commutation hearing for Thomas Creech. The 73-year-old death row inmate and admitted murderer.
73-year-old Thomas Creech is a convicted killer who's been on death row for 41 years.
Or was it revenge? How do you feel about that? I thought at the time that I was doing the right thing.
In August, Creech suffered injuries after falling from his bunk bed in his cell, necessitating a trip to the hospital for stitches. Later, in October, an alleged confession from Creech emerged, in which he claimed to have shot the victims in self-defense after they threatened him and Spaulding with a knife. Despite these challenges, Creech's trial proceeded, albeit with numerous legal hurdles. The venue was changed from Cascade to Wallace, and contentious issues surrounding evidence, including Creech's alleged confession, arose. Ultimately, the court ruled that the confession could be admitted as evidence in the trial, further complicating Creech's defense strategy. Throughout these legal proceedings, Creech's erratic behavior and the complex circumstances surrounding the case attracted significant media attention. The public eagerly followed developments in the trial, which garnered widespread interest and scrutiny. Creech's trial and imprisonment were marked by a series of tumultuous events, including suicide attempts, legal battles, and disruptive behavior. Despite attempts to navigate the legal system and present a defense, Creech faced numerous challenges that ultimately shaped the outcome of his trial and subsequent imprisonment. Confessions and other victims. Michael Creech's trial took a shocking turn in October 1975 when he confessed to a staggering 42 slayings spanning nearly a dozen states. Among his admissions, he claimed responsibility for his first slaying at the age of 17, where he allegedly drowned a friend in New Miami, Ohio.
Creech was sentenced to death for the murder of a fellow inmate in 1981 and was convicted of 4 other murders.
Mr. Creech is a death row inmate in the state of Idaho. He has been seeking information from the state.
He was a kind-hearted, very loving. He loved life.
Creech is convicted of 5 murders in several states. So how did we get here? Our Abby Davis has the story.
Despite his self-admitted status as a serial slayer, Creech vehemently denied involvement in the Arnold Bradford slayings, for which he was eventually sentenced to demise by hanging. His attorney and private investigator sought to overturn the conviction by interviewing additional witnesses, highlighting the complexity and ambiguity of the case. Although Creech's ending was initially scheduled for May 21, 1976, it was postponed pending appeals, during which Creech offered to stand trial for some of his other alleged slayings. Subsequent convictions in Oregon and California added to his criminal record, but the exact details of his sentence remain unclear. Prison slaying and new sentence. Following the 1976 Supreme Court ruling in Gregg v. Georgia, which altered demise penalty sentencing procedures, Michael Creech's attorney, Bruce Robinson, successfully argued for his client's demise sentence to be commuted to life imprisonment, citing flaws in the state's demise penalty statute at the time. Despite attempts to secure Creech's release, Robinson's efforts only led to a reduction in sentence. Creech was incarcerated at the Idaho State Correctional Institution, where he worked as a janitor, despite concerns from prosecutors about his potential danger to other inmates. Tragically, on May 13, 1981, Creech fatally attacked 23-year-old David Dale Jensen, a fellow inmate, using a makeshift weapon consisting of a sock filled with batteries.
Law enforcement officers said he beat fellow inmate David Dale Jensen to death with a sock full of batteries.
Should have been executed a long time ago. Now, Creech is asking for the death penalty.
He's now asking that his death sentence be commuted to life in prison without parole.
Information, the inadequacy of information provided, and the practices of the state with regard to withholding information.
Charged with first-degree slaying, Creech ultimately pleaded guilty and received a demise sentence. The sentencing judge acknowledged Creech's initial self-defense stance, but identified multiple aggravating factors, including the intentional and calculated nature of the attack. Creech's remorse and desire for ending changed over the years, with him expressing sorrow and anxiety as his ending date approached in February 2024 after decades of appealing his sentence. Current status. Since his second demise sentence, Michael Creech has resided on Demise Row at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, where he holds the record for being the longest-serving inmate. Despite the passage of time, the legal proceedings surrounding his case continue to evolve. In 2020, Creech and another Demise Row inmate, Gerald Pizzuto, initiated a federal lawsuit alleging that the state's secrecy surrounding ending protocols violated their rights. However, the lawsuit was dismissed by U.S. District Court Judge David Nye due to ongoing appeals.
Idaho's longest-serving death row inmate is scheduled to be executed Wednesday, barring
and under this court's understanding of the allegations. This court then remanded the case for further proceedings.
Accident that killed her, and I held the guy responsible. Car accident? Mm-hmm.
Today, the Idaho Supreme Court denied a motion to stay his execution.
Following this, Creech filed 2 appeals, one seeking another clemency review and another declaring his demise sentence unconstitutional, as it was imposed by a judge rather than a jury. However, both appeals were dismissed by the Idaho Supreme Court on February 9, 2024. Even the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals from California rejected Creech's appeal on February 23, 2024, criticizing his lawyers for raising the issue late and without credible evidence. Meanwhile, Jensen's family expressed opposition to Creech's clemency plea, emphasizing the impact of Jensen's loss and their desire to see justice served. As Creech's ending date looms, legal battles persist, with the governor publicly expressing his intent not to spare Creech from punishment. The case continues to attract attention and debate, highlighting complex legal and ethical considerations surrounding capital punishment and the rights of those sentenced to demise. That's all for this video, folks. We'll see you next time.